Our sermon today will be delivered by Donna Janesky. Donna, as many of you know, has been a member of UUCJ since 1971, during which time she has served on almost every committee and also built countless relationships within the congregation. Outside of her church life, Donna worked as a nurse for 55 years. Her career included significant time working in long-term care and as the director of the first inpatient hospice unit in Florida. Who better to speak with us today about endings? Please welcome Donna.
Well, all right. Thank you for coming to church today. I know there's another something going on today in town. Because of our topic, I'm going to begin with something lighthearted. George Burns said the secret to a good sermon was to have a good beginning and a good ending, and have the two as close together as possible. So that was my good beginning. Well, here we are again. I hope you've all fully recovered from the holiday happenings, that you and your friends and families have made wonderful memories together. For those new to the church, I have presented this service for several years now, and for whatever reason, I've been asked to do it again. Our previous minister, Ron Hersom, used to do a year in review look back for the first service of the year, and he asked me to participate with him for a few years, which I did. And then he became ill and left us, and I did it by myself. So here it is. There are dozens of year-end lists available this time of year, and they do give us a quick picture of the past. So let's set the tone for 2017. Donald Trump took office. There were 420 organized protest marches. Jose, Harvey, and Irma paid us a visit. North Korea fired its first ICBM. There was a white supremacy rally in Charlottesville, Virginia. A mass shooting at a concert in Las Vegas. Lots of computer hacking. The Bitcoin became popular, and in August, we observed a solar eclipse, the first since 1979. Dhaka is still unsettled, and Queen Elizabeth marked 65 years of continuous reign. Corrine is still fighting jail time. And did I say Donald Trump took office? I think I mentioned that. The word for the year is complicit. This choice no doubt elevated by the Russian election influence, sexual harassment, scandals, mass shootings, and the opioid epidemic. Oxford Dictionary's word of the year is the noun youthquake, and is defined as a significant cultural, political, or social change arising from the actions or influence of young people. For the first time, we have non-words of the year as dictated by the government to the CDC. They are vulnerable, diversity, entitlement, fetus, transgender, science-based, and evidence-based. I don't know about you, but I hope to keep using them profusely in 2018. The color of the year is ultraviolet, chosen to evoke a counterculture flair, a grab for originality, ingenuity, and visionary thinking. So that's ultraviolet, got to be your color. And yes, we will be talking about death and dying and remembering those who are no longer with us. But hopefully this conversation will spark in you a realization of appreciation for the time you have here on this earth plane and how to make the most of it. The fear of death resides in our DNA. I quote William Shakespeare, "Golden lads and girls all must, as chimney sweepers, come to dust." We're programmed to live and to do everything in our power to survive. Since the thought of dying can be overwhelming, we run and hide from it. Opening ourselves to the possibilities of life after death is natural, and so is conducting honest inquiries into the true nature of life and death. Dealing with death occurs over the course of a lifetime. When it comes to accepting the inevitable, we're all works in progress, and a certain amount of existential unrest is part of being human. The seasons, changes, losses, the transitions of life demand upgrades in our operating systems. Summoning courage, faith, understanding, and humility requires great determination. Allowing for and accepting life's terms, as well as voicing our objections to the parts that are sad and scary, is all part of the journey. According to UU writer Doug Mooter, Unitarian Universalists don't often gather together to think about their deaths. Even UU funerals usually focus on much more specific life that has ended rather than shared mortality. If a memorial service includes testimonials, he's much more likely to tell a story of some inspiration he takes from the deceased or some amusing prank they pulled, rather than say, "This death reminds me that I will die too, and it scares me." Historically, we've been an upbeat, can-do religion that doesn't make a lot of space for brooding about death. Most of the time, I think that's a healthy reaction against religions that brood too much and too unproductively. Better we should worry about disasters that might actually happen than scare ourselves with visions of hell. Better we put our efforts toward improving life here on earth than try to pile riches in some dubious afterlife. Unquote. Have you noticed that the topic of death is now being approached in a more open and forthright manner? More than 45 million Americans are over 65 years of age, and that number will grow to 100 million by 2060. Conversations about death are happening all over the country. Last year, I spoke about how Wendy Carter and I attended a workshop called Death Cafe at SUSE, and we had plans to do it here at UUCJ. Well, a few months back, that is exactly what we did, with about 25 people in attendance. Did some of you attend? Yes. Over coffee and cake, we sat at tables and talked about death. Remember, death used to be simple. Now we must make decisions that are complicated and costly. Attendees will tell you that they had a good time, and we heard lots of laughter. I see heads nodding. Many asked us to present this again, and we probably will, and I hope you choose to attend. It was illuminating. Before I Die festivals are also popping up all over the country. There are 5-day workshops where people are assisted with making final plans. End-of-life discussions bring clarity and peace of mind to older individuals. And they all have a Before I Die wall where you can fill in the blank. Now, do you remember that we did this here at UUCJ a few years back? We put big poster paper all over the social hall, gave people markers, and they had at it. Before I die, I want to. And they filled in the blank. It was quite an experience. What did you write? Have you done it yet? Have you read about the coffin clubs? Started in New Zealand in 2010. These groups consist of folks who don't want boring funerals, and they make their own lovely, unique coffins with nods to their personality. So can you imagine an Elvis Presley coffin, a wildflower coffin, a motorcycle coffin? This is what they do. Here's another one. A new book will be published this month, and it's titled The Gentle Art of Swedish Death Cleaning. Basically, if your family doesn't want your stuff when you're alive, they for sure won't want it when you're dead. And it's suggested that the decluttering process should begin by around age 65. Now, the Times-Union on Christmas Eve had an article about doing death cleaning for your finances as well. This includes consolidating financial accounts, automating payments, pruning credit cards, and setting up a watchdog. Smart, huh? And then there is the therapeutic humor movement that is catching on. Laughter is a healthy thing, and it's good for both patients and caregivers, helping them to cope. Also in the news is the fact that more and more people are writing their own obituaries. They dislike the usual resume format and poetic last stanza that is so glowing that you would think the deceased had been the living embodiment of a deity. But it's a chance to say what made their life worthwhile and give thanks to those who mattered. In May of 2017, Ponte Vedra resident Dorothy Goodwin authored her own obituary, which was a touching love story appearing on the front page of the Times-Union, which elicited many responses in letters to the editor. You might remember reading them. Now, on the opinion page of the December 30th edition of the Times-Union, the email interactive group was asked to respond to this question: what does a good death look like? You can tell I read the paper, huh? This was prompted by a New Yorker podcast interview with Ezekiel Emanuel, a physician and architect of the Affordable Care Act, who said at the age of 75, he will stop taking medications designed to prolong his life. The responses were very interesting. Most didn't agree with the 75 cutoff, although a few did. Since I'm over 75, I don't think I agree with the cutoff. I'm going to keep taking my meds for a little while. Death used to be a spiritual experience, dying at home surrounded by family. Advances in medicine have changed that scenario, and now we have people in scrubs surrounding us. Most lay people want everything done to resuscitate them. Ventilation, CPR, dialysis, surgery, testing, feeding tubes, pain meds, etc. It's interesting that 90% of doctors say no to all this with the exception of pain meds. On TV, when you see them resuscitating in, dramas, CPR, 75% of folks are revived. That's on TV. The actual survival rate is 8%. I highly recommend Dr. Atul Gawande's book. It's a wonderful book, Being Mortal. And it's about illness, medicine, and what matters in the end. He says the problem with medicine and institutions is that it has spawned for the care of the sick and old, but it is not that they have had an incorrect view of what makes life significant. The problem is that they have had almost no view at all. Medicine's focus is narrow. Medical professionals concentrate on repair of health, not sustenance of the soul. Yet this is the painful paradox. We have decided they should be the ones who largely define how we live in our waning days. And I can tell you, through all my years in the medical field, how much it has changed, and for the better. But I remember days, in the early days of my nursing career, when the doctor would not reveal to the patient that they were terminal, when the family could only visit during visiting hours, when the dying person was kept at the end of the hall. And it was, I guess that's what sparked my interest in hospice, because I knew there had to be a better way. There had to be a better way. We're getting there. I don't know if we're totally there, but we are moving in that direction. But for more than a half century now, we've treated the trials of sickness, aging, and mortality as a medical concern. It's been an experiment in social engineering, putting our fate in the hands of people valued more for their technical prowess than for their understanding of human needs. As we contemplate our own mortality, let us ponder some concern and regrets by those faced with imminent death. This is from a blog of an Australian palliative care nurse. I quote, "Number 1, I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expect of me. Number 2, I wish I didn't work so hard. Number 3, I wish I had the courage to express my feelings. Number 4, I wish I had stayed in touch with my friends. Number 5, I wish I had let myself be happier." Any of those ring a bell for you? Mine was number 2. I wish I didn't work so hard. Those 50 and 60-hour work weeks were just too much. Now I want to talk about the frying pan moment. And I don't mean a wimpy frying pan, a Teflon frying pan, you know, those wimpy frying pans. I mean a frying pan like this. This is your grandmother's iron skillet. Why is it that it takes a hit over the head with a frying pan before we make the important changes in our lives that would eliminate regrets and create a new you who finally made the changes you always knew you should make? Is your frying pan hit going to be a heart attack, a stroke, divorce, death in the family, cancer diagnosis, lost job, lost friend? I'm going to share with you one of my own frying pan moments. As a senior manager for a long-term care company, I traveled a lot. It so happened that my son's graduation from UNF occurred on the same day as a corporate meeting in Baltimore. Now, it took a while for my son to finish school. He worked his way through, and it was quite an achievement for him. But I checked the schedules and figured everything down to the last minute. I could do this by leaving the meeting a half hour early. As I boarded the plane to return to Jax, I thought, all is well. I can do this. And then we sat on the tarmac. And then we sat on the tarmac. A delay due to mechanical problems. My adrenaline was through the roof. But finally we took off, only to land in a blinding rainstorm in Jacksonville. And we landed about the time the graduation was to begin. The drive to UNF was horrendous. I'm still feeling the adrenaline from that drive. I remember it so well. But all I could think of was that I had to get there. I ran up to the auditorium door, I opened it, and was greeted by the music of the recessional playing. It was all over. I didn't get to hear his name called, didn't get to see my firstborn walk across the stage and receive his diploma. Whack. I learned I could not do everything, and always I learned that family must come first. Jonah Eller Isaacs had such a moment with a cancer diagnosis at the age of 28. This is what he wrote after his frying pan moment. The walk you walk won't be easy. No, in fact, it will be incredibly hard. The most difficult thing you've ever done. But down that path, though, it is quite far and treacherous. There is a new you, a better friend, husband, lover, son or wife, lover, daughter, with more compassion and empathy, with a deeper sense of purpose, with a greater respect for life. You will love more strongly. You will listen more carefully. You will take care of the people in your life. You will take care of yourself. You will do all you can to create positive forces in your life and the lives of others. So I want you to keep this in mind when you are making your New Year's resolutions. And don't wait for the frying pan to whack you on the head. Do now what you know in your heart of hearts that you need to do, that will be good for you, that will be good for your family. Let us now remember those who have left us this past year. Friends and members of UUCJ. Mary Ann Bradbert, a former member who joined UUCJ in 1980. She was a loving neighbor of mine when I lived in Riverside. She lived right next door to me, and she just means so much. Those of you who have been to my yard, those big birdhouses in my garden, those are from Mary Ann Bradbert. Doug Knight, a member since 1987. He helped found the Bruckman Bridge Church with Bob Towers. Carolyn Maddox was a genteel lady, longtime member of this church, joining in 1967. Kenneth Brack joined our community in 2015. I didn't get to know him very well, but I'm sure some of you do. And I'm going to do some other celebrity deaths that I'll just list them off. Local notables: Virginia Adder Keys, a TV personality; Bill Brinton, community leader and attorney; Arnett Girardo, civil rights supporter. And here are some other celebrities. Singers: Buddy Greco, Joni Sledge, Chuck Berry, Mel Tillis, Greg Allman, Glenn Campbell, Della Reese, Tom Petty, Fats Domino. Actors: Jim Neighbor, David Cassidy, Robert Guillaume, Jay Thomas, who graduated from JU, Sam Shepard, Mike Connors, Barbara Hale, Mary Tyler Moore, John Hurt, Dina Merrill, Adam West, Martin Landau, Miguel Ferrer, and Roger Moore. Some sports figures: Frank DeFord, Jimmy Breslin, boxer Jake LaMotta, Y.A. Tittle, Lyle Smith. And comedians: Don Rickles, Dick Gregory, Jerry Lewis, Bill Dana, Shelley Berman. Other notables: Hugh Hefner, Roger Ailes of Fox News, David Rockefeller, who died at 101, Charles Manson, and Judge Wapner. And lastly, Emma Morano. We spoke about her last year being the oldest living person. She died in northern Italy at the age of 117. She was the last surviving person born in the 1800s. And now, for the past few years, we have recognized the homeless in Jacksonville who have died in the past year. There is often no one to mourn their passing. So please join us as we recite their names together. You have an insert in your order of service, and we're going to light a candle for their remembrance. Try and give each one a kind thought as you speak their name, along with Karen and Katie. Katie?
Teresa Baines. Michael Varner. William Benoit.
Ruby Bowles Mack. Paul Bird. Edward Clark. Sarah Dillard. Andre Fleming. Richard Gamble. Robert Hicks. Anna Kelsey. Tammy Lane. Stephen Myers. Willie Pendleton. Robert Shepard. William Wagner. James Waters.
And now, here is the good ending. Alfred Tennyson said, "Hope smiles from the threshold of the year to come. It will be happier." And my ending words to you are, don't wait for the frying pan to hit you. Be kind to each other. Work for peace and justice. Be generous. And love, love, love one another. Peace be with you.